The IRS whistleblower hearing is still underway on Capitol Hill. We will continue to monitor it. Welcome to The Five, everyone. I'm Greg Gutfeld, along with Judge Jeanine Pirro, Jessica Tarloff, Jesse Waters, and Kennedy. It's called The Five. The Hunter headache getting worse for the White House. The second IRS whistleblower coming forward and testifying before Congress right now. Joseph Ziegler revealing his identity for the first time and confirming that the Biden DOJ cooked the books in the Hunter tax probe, stonewalling steps that may have led to President Biden.
It appeared to me, based on what I experienced, that the U.S. Attorney in Delaware in our investigation was constantly hamstrung, limited, and marginalized by DOJ officials as well as other U.S. attorneys. I still think that a special counsel is necessary for this investigation. Assigned prosecutors did not appear to follow the normal investigative process, slow-walked the investigation, and put in place unnecessary approvals and roadblocks from effectively and efficiently investigating the case. A number of times we were not able to follow the facts.
Prosecutors instructed investigators not to ask about the big guy or dad when conducting interviews. Investigators were not allowed to follow up on WhatsApp messages from Hunter Biden's Apple iCloud backup, where he suggested he was sitting next to his father.
Ziegler also laid out how Hunter was writing off hookers in rooms for his drug dealer while partying in L.A., and these guys weren't allowed to look into it.
Hunter Biden allegedly falsely claimed business deductions for payments made to the Chateau Marmont, a hotel room for his supposed drug dealer, sex club memberships, falsely referenced on the wire as a golf membership, hotels he was blacklisted from, and a Columbia University tuition payment for his adult daughter. All of these items were used to support the willfulness element for felony tax evasion. These false deductions claimed by Hunter Biden caused a false return to be prepared that underreported his total income by approximately $267,000 and a loss to the U.S. Treasury of $106,000.
Now, even though the whistleblowers were called the IRS A-team, Democrats still wound up attacking their integrity.
We can conclude that this Inspector Clouseau-style quest for something that doesn't exist has turned our committee into a theater of the absurd, an exercise in futility and embarrassment.
There seems to be a new level of hypocrisy here.
We are here today because Donald Trump is exerting an influence campaign.
I know the American people are confused because we're all confused what we're doing here. Nothing this majority has claimed about the president or his family has merit.
Evidence confuses them. Ziegler also made it crystal clear that he's not some right-wing stooge.
Although I do have my supporters, others have said that I am a traitor to the Democratic Party and that I am causing more division in our society. I implore you to consider that if you were in my position with the facts as I have stated them, ask yourself if you would be doing the exact same thing. I kind of equate this to experience and feelings I encountered when coming out. It was honestly one of the hardest things I ever had to go through.
You know, Judge, this is I think what's so infuriating about this is what you're seeing is exactly what the Democrats falsely accused Republicans and Donald Trump of doing. The only difference here, this is actual evidence and testimony from people who had to face the evidence and deal with the DOJ and the FBI.
You know, we learned a couple of things today. We learned, number one, that the target was tipped off the night before. Okay, we also learned that although Jamie Raskin really wants this to be about investigators versus prosecutors and never really agreeing, according to these whistleblowers, the prosecutors and the investigators did agree, and it was the DOJ that scuttled the plans to indict for a felony. Also, we learned that every time they needed to do further investigation, which they would have done in any normal case, they weren't allowed to do so. They weren't allowed to speak to Hunter's kids. They weren't allowed to ask questions about the big guy, as you just heard. And it was all about roadblocks and slow walking. But I want to commend these whistleblowers. First of all, these whistleblowers have nothing to gain and everything to lose. But they brought their A game. And there was nothing that the Democrats said that touched anything in terms of credibility and their expertise. And finally, you know, when you hear about ridiculous things like, you know, Hunter taking a deduction for a hotel room for his drug dealer, then we found out that Hunter took a deduction for his father, a business deduction for a hotel room. I guess maybe they were in business together. And then finally a sex club, and he called it a golf club, he took a deduction for. And, you know, when he was with Rosemont Seneca, the whole idea, he didn't take income, but he took something as a loan when there was no promissory note, there was no repayment, there was no you know, interest charge. It was just a different way that they could treat the taxes. And of course, it was part of his scheme to defraud the government. So this president wants 87,000 IRS agents with guns, no less, to make sure that everybody pays their fair share, unless it's Hunter Biden or the Biden family. And finally, let me just say that apparently Ziegler said between 2014 and 2019, there was $17 million in foreign money that the Bidens got.
So, Kennedy, hookers, drugs, sex clubs.
My weekend is full. You're absolutely right. Thank you so much for asking. But, you know, I'm making notes as the judge is talking. I'm like, remind my accountant to change the name of things to avoid any suspicion. But there is so much here. And what really upsets me is this overly emotional conflation. And you've got people on the committee who refuse to take apart or question these points, which, you know, it might be convenient if this is a basis for prosecution or investigation for an opposing party when they are back in power. But instead, you know, their dismissal of it, all that means is Republicans, you know, they can dismiss anything they want when it is a Republican child of a president who is accused. And, you know, it's so obvious here that they don't have a counter argument, because they wouldn't be talking about things like Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, which I think is actually really offensive, because, you know, when you don't have facts to go to, or you don't have the ability to really question and examine those facts, then you go to something that is so completely emotional, not realizing that, you know, there is no mutual exclusivity here.
That's a good point, Jesse. It's like they're not really disputing the testimony because of the witnesses and the amount of evidence, hundreds and hundreds of pages. So you have accusations of it's a theater or it's Inspector Clouseau, when it's actually the opposite of that.
Yeah, I used to hate the IRS, and now I love them.
Good for you.
I can't add much to what the judge said. She nailed it, but at every turn, they blocked the laptop, they blocked search warrants, they blocked the seeking of testimony from the Biden family. They stymied every effort to ask the Biden family questions and investigate Joe Biden. And then we find out that this guy Garland lied to Congress, and Garland has obstructed justice. So right there, he should be impeached. I didn't know this, but this guy, Mr. X, great name. Mr. X, he wasn't told to go look into Hunter. He stumbled upon Hunter when he was looking into some international porn investigation and noticed that Hunter was buying escorts, and Hunter was using his bank as basically an escort slush fund, and his corporate bank account as an escort slush fund. That sets alarm bells off with tax investigators that something's fishy. That's when he looked into it, and then he tried to bring the case to Washington, D.C., and they moved the case from D.C. to Delaware. And the minute it gets to Delaware, everything goes wrong. The tires start flying off, you know, the buttons stop working. They drag this thing out like crazy. Now, I just remember when they tried to nail Trump for obstructing a crime that he didn't commit. Remember, they wanted to charge him with obstruction? And he handed over every single document. They interviewed him, they interviewed his son, his daughter, his son-in-law. They threw his campaign manager in jail. They spied on his campaign. They use every prosecutorial tool in the toolbox to nail the guy, and there was no crime there. And then you look at how this was handled. They get tipped off. They're told, no, you can't talk to this person. No, you can't talk to this person. They run out the statute of limitations on that felony. They had him on three or four felonies. He didn't even pay taxes on the bereavement income. So they got to go after Garland. This guy's cooked.
You know, I was in the green room with